Okay, this is just a real quick overview of how to set up Tuner Pro for the first time, just to help out some of the new guys. I'll save most of the detailed stuff for additional videos such as hardware, emulation, data logging, stuff like that. Really all we need for this video is the Tuner Pro application, an XDF file, an ADX, and your bin file. I'm going to move pretty quick through this, so if you need to pause it, please do so. Really, you're only going to be going to two websites, so go ahead and launch a browser. Go to tunerpro.net, and from the home page, go to Downloads, Tuner Pro Applications. And for the sake of this video, we're going to be using Tuner Pro RT, which is the paid version, well worth it. It includes emulation and data logging capabilities. Now, once you purchase Tuner Pro RT, you'll receive a TPK file. If you get it from Tuner Pro, Mark will usually email that to you in a separate email. If you get it from a third-party vendor, just make sure you get it. You'll need it to register Tuner Pro. Next, navigate to code59.org, and from the home page, grab the latest XDF and ADX files. The latest ones are normally listed on the home page, but depending on when you see this video, the look may have changed or things may have changed. So just always make sure you're getting the latest one. If they're not listed here, they'll be in the download center. So we'll grab the XDF and the ADX. And Paul's really good about listing what changes have been made to it. So if you're looking for a particular fix for something, you can always look at this as well as the other revision histories below. Now, if you've already got a bin, you can go ahead and skip ahead. If you don't, we'll be going to the download center, code 59 bins, V6 bins, unless you're a V8, and just find a bin that's as close to yours as you can. When in doubt, always start with the stock starter bin. But if you've got, say, 60-pound injectors, or you've got a big turbo, or you've got specific cam or Vortex heads or whatever, it helps to find one that's already kind of got that stuff tuned for. For instance, like Rob's bin here is for 40-pound injectors. It would be a good starting point for somebody who has 40 pounds rather than trying to reinvent the wheel by starting with the stock bin. Now, having said that, don't focus too much on the trivial stuff. Just because he's got a stock intercooler doesn't mean that this bin probably won't work just as well for an air-to-air. Or if it's close, you can always tune for little stuff like that. But try and get as close as you can on things like injectors and cam and heads and turbo. Especially when someone's already done the legwork for that, it really saves time and effort. We're going to be using the stock bin, so we'll go to the last page and download it. Now, once all those have downloaded, go ahead and navigate to wherever you downloaded them and extract the XDF, ADX, and the bin files. And that's really all we need online, so we can minimize that. Go ahead and launch the Tuner Pro installation and begin installing. It's a real simple setup. Your screen may look a little different, but it's just a few questions and you're installed. Now, I've already installed Tuner Pro on this computer before, so a lot of the file associations have already been made. It already knows to look for my TPK file. It already knows to look for the data files, the ADX and the XDF files. But I'll go ahead and go over this as if I did not already have those associations. You would copy your TPK file, navigate to wherever Tuner Pro is installed, which is normally root drive, program files, Tuner Pro, and paste it into that directory. Once you launch Tuner Pro for the first time, if it's a virgin installation, you'll see a little box prompting you to register Tuner Pro. You'll navigate to wherever you just saved that file and import that registration key. If you don't do it, it'll ask you to do it every time you start with a 10-second counter. But go ahead and do it. If you paid for it, you'll get a TPK. Go ahead and register it, and it won't prompt you for that anymore. Now, like I mentioned, my installation has already made the file associations for the ADX, XDF, and the bin file. But if I did not have anything in there, you would see nothing selected up top. And you would go to Acquisition, Load Definition File, navigate to wherever you have that saved, and then open it. Same for the XDF. Navigate to that, and the bin file. Same thing. Now, like most modern software, Tuner Pro does have a recent history. So if you're bin swapping or tuning multiple trucks or whatever, don't always go to Open Bin. Just go to Recent Bin, select the one you want, and you're off and running. Again, like I said, I'm not connected to any hardware. So if I was to connect an Ostrich right now, I could click the Initialize Hardware button. You would see hardware found, and you would see these buttons go live so that I could emulate, download data, or upload a bin. Same thing for the data acquisition. If I did have connectivity to an ALDL right now, I could click the Acquire Data button. This would go blue. I could start the dash and see live data. I could enable data tracing. I could record a log. I could play back a log. All sorts of good stuff that we'll go over later. Now the main three things that you have in Tuner Pro are scalars, flags, and tables. Scalars are just a single value. So if you want to make a change to, let's say you want to disable EGR, the easiest way to do it is to make sure that it's never enabled via temperature. So you scroll down, find the one you want, change this value, which it's already changed in here, and you no longer have EGR. Setting this value higher than your coolant temp would ever get means it's never going to reach the temperature switch to actually cut on the EGR. And that was the old way that closed loop was enabled, knock was turned off, EGR was disabled, things like that. If you were to set this back to a temperature that you could actually achieve, it would attempt to enable EGR. If nothing else had been changed and you did have the EGR deleted, you'd probably get a check engine light. So this is one way of avoiding check engine light. It's also a way of not enabling the other tables that go along with EGR. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now, you'll notice that an asterisk has shown up after the bin. That just means that a change has been made, but no save has been made. And if you don't save it, when you go to upload the data, it won't reflect those changes. So it's very important to save that. It does not auto-save, and as long as you see the asterisk up there, it means you've made changes but have not saved them. So always make sure you save your stuff, especially when you're editing large tables. It's frustrating to have to go back and redo those. Now, inside the scalars, there's not a whole lot you'll change. You may go in and set a different temperature for the torque converter lockup, or you may set a different closed loop enabled temperature or whatever. But for the most part, you'll stay out of scalars. Ditto for flags. Except for the initial setup of things, you won't go into flags very often. I've already made some changes to this bin, so you'll see some stuff a little bit different. But if you, let's say you had a Tech Edge wideband, and the person who had this bin before you had a PLX, well, you would go in, uncheck the PLX, and enable the Tech Edge. Vice versa. Let's say you just download the bin, it had Tech Edge enabled, and you wanted a PLX because this is what you got. You would check it and save it. And it's really that simple. Checking enables, unchecking disables. That's especially useful for check engine lights. So let's say you want to disable an EGR check engine light, uncheck it, save it, no more EGR light. But like I said, there's not a whole lot you'll do in here. Once you set up your wideband, once you make sure you want closed loop operation, or you want to enable the expanded tables and all those things, you won't really go into flags very often. 3 bars checked, first limit boost limit is unchecked, things like that. Once it's set up, pretty well stay out of flags. Where you'll spend most of your time is going to be in tables. Now this encompasses 2D and 3D tables. A 2D table is a single axis table, a lot like the EGR base pulse constant. This is our base pulse width map for the SciTies. Whatever change you make in here is reflective irregardless of RPM and KPA for fueling. So in a way, it's kind of like cranking up or down the fuel pressure. It's going to give more fuel regardless of almost any other parameter. And that adds into the entire fuel calculation formula. The F28 is one aspect of that formula, so whatever changes you make in here are kind of blanket fueling changes. If you were to go in and change this particular value, because we've got EGR disabled, it's only going to look at the 0 cell. When in doubt, go ahead and change them all, and you can click the top button to enable the entire row to be selected, or you can click the top one, hold down shift, click the bottom one. In other tables, it may be useful to select random cells. You can hold down control and select other cells, just like you do in native Windows. This works a lot just like the operating system you're working on does. So let's say we wanted to change every value in here. We have several options from the function drop-down. Offset basically just adds or subtracts a target value from whatever's listed here. So let's say we wanted to add 22 to everything. We execute, now it all becomes 180. Let's say we want to subtract 22 from 180. Just put a negative and you're back to 158. It's a real easy way of just incrementing an entire map just a little bit. Let's say you turn down your fuel pressure, you were suddenly lean, you could go in and just slightly increment your fueling to get back where you need to be. Multiply, let's say you wanted to multiply everything by 1.5. Execute, so all of a sudden that. Divide is the opposite. Copy from compare, I didn't go over this, but Tuner Pro allows comparative bins, so you can load another person's bin, up to 4 of them, and you can copy data from a table or scalar or flag from another person's bin. So let's say everything else being the same, you just wanted to copy their timing map. You could go into the main timing map, copy everything from their bin, and paste it into yours. It's real effective when you're dealing with large tables if you need to do that. For smaller tables such as the EGR base pulse constant, you can probably do the changes manually, and it's not really that time consuming. Going back to the other values, fill with value is a simple overwrite. So let's say you wanted everything listed to be 160, select that, type in 160 and execute, and it becomes 160. If you just do one cell and you change it to, let's say, 158, it just does the one cell. Highlight it, all of them, it'll overwrite. Smoothing is going to try and average between two cells. You normally won't use smoothing very much, but it is there as an option. And once you make a change, if you want to discard them, you can just click the X, or you can commit the change. And once you've committed the change, don't forget to save. That's a 2D map, and there are several of them in the bin. One of the more popular ones that used to be was the F30 map. It was one of the VE maps that was added together to try and get a total VE. Because we selected in the flags that we did not want to use the default GM VE tables, we want to use the F29X extended table for open and closed throttle, and we want to use it period. These now become unused, and we would now use the F29X table for any changes we want to make. And you'll see that this is a very large table. It actually encompasses vacuum and boost for every RPM and KPA that we might achieve. Your idle, if you've got a relatively stock truck or something like that, would be somewhere in the 800 RPM range, around the 40 to 31 KPA, maybe as high as 51 depending on your cam. But in here is where it's going to kind of hover. So if you want a leaner idle or a richer idle, you would focus on this area. So let's say you wanted a leaner idle, but you wanted these values, the difference between them, to remain the same. You want to preserve those differences. You can offset. So let's say you just want to make it 5 counts lower. We need to put a negative and execute. Now all of a sudden they become 5 counts lower. Same token, if we want to increment at 5, we would take the negative out, and suddenly we're 5 higher. If we want to make all those one value, we can change that, and they all become one value. Tuner Pro works on a drag method, so if you want to select multiple values, you can start at your leftmost or bottom rightmost or top rightmost or whatever. Start at a corner and drag downward to get the selected cells you want. By the same token, you can still use the vertical or horizontal selection for an entire row or column. And this is really useful when you've got an RPM where, say, fueling is way too rich in every KPA or way too lean in every KPA. You can just go to that RPM and we can add fuel across the board. Now every cell becomes 90. Really, that's about it for manipulating cells in a 3D map. What they mean and what they do, that comes with tuning, and we'll discuss those in other videos. But don't be discouraged by all the tables that are listed and all the data that's listed. It's really not as daunting as it seems, and that's one thing we want to show people, is that tuning is not that complicated. There's no need to really be mystified or deterred by it, because most of this stuff, especially in scalers, you'll never use. I've never used. It's there for changes if you so need them, but rarely will you go in and use that stuff. You don't even have to know what it means or what it does. By the same token, values like you see in here are nonsensical values. What does 155 mean? Well, it really doesn't mean anything. It is just a value that the computer interprets, and if you go up or down, it will make a change accordingly. So don't get hung up on the small stuff. It's not that complicated. It's not that daunting. And really all you'll focus on once you've kind of got the foundation laid, you'll be working inside of your fuel map, you'll be working inside of your timing map, you may be working inside of your boost multiplier, you may be working on some idle tables, for part neutral and for drive, you may be working on your torque converter, wastegate control, things like that, but really that's about it. You're not going to get into most of the smaller tables. You obviously won't get into shift lights. You won't really get into the other section a whole lot. Barometric changes you won't get into a whole lot. Cold engine start up and running. You may make a few minor changes, but it's nothing that's going to be detrimental or too hard for you to learn. And once you've learned the fundamentals of it and what each cell and map kind of does, the value itself holds less, pun intended, value, because it just represents something that the computer uses to make a change, and you're just manipulating that change. So don't get deterred. Don't get discouraged by what looks like a severe learning curve, because it's really not. And once you've got data logging enabled and you're able to see the bubble move around and you're able to see where you're lean, where you're rich, where changes need to be made, the tuning becomes so much easier. And I'll really go over that in another tutorial to really show you how to iron all that out. But for right now, this is mostly what you'll do. And a safe starting point is always idle. That's what we always tell people. If you want to start out and seeing how changes you make can affect the truck, go down, find your desired idle RPM for coolant versus coolant for drive and for part neutral. Make changes in there. Start out, crank the truck up, leave it in park, and just find this table. Go in and change. Let's say it's up to temperature. You'll be working in bottom cells. Go in and just make a change to here. Change it to 800. Save it, upload it, and you'll notice your idle will increase. And it's a real easy thing to do. Where once you've kind of got the hang of that, you can move on to a little more advanced stuff. But start off playing with the things that you can't really hurt anything with. Worst thing that can happen in this, truck shuts off. Go in, make the change you need, upload it, and you're back running. Once you've done that, maybe go in and play with something like your fueling table. Always err on the side of too rich. But go in and maybe play with something like that. Work on your idle fueling. So if you've got a wideband, go in, change these values, take them up a few notches, and notice that you start running richer. Take them down a few notches, notice that you start running leaner. Kind of see what it takes to make a desired change for your truck. Does it take a 10 VE change to get you a full AFR point? Does it take a 2 VE change to get you a full AFR point? Those kind of things. You really want to work out what it takes for your truck so that when you're dealing with this tremendously lean or rich situation, okay, I can't just chip away at this 1 VE at a time. I may need to take 8 or 10 or whatever counts down or off or up. So kind of try to get to know your truck a little bit better and what it takes and what it needs to make a desired change. And then once you've kind of got the hang of it, you can start on the drivability and wide open throttle stuff, but just kind of take baby steps. Don't be in a rush to get that seat of pants change. Learning how to do stuff at idle and taking a slow process through this will reap tremendous rewards, and you won't really hurt anything. You won't damage an engine by running a 13 to 1 AFR at wide open throttle, or you won't be running 40 degrees of timing at wide open throttle or anything stupid like that. And save the boost control maps maybe for last, unless you've got an issue that you need to iron out. You can do a lot of damage in these, in the sense that you can render your wastegate ineffective and essentially run well beyond the boost that you need to be running. By the same token, you can run base boost. So it's a very powerful set of controls in the boost control section. Maybe save those for last once you know what you're doing, unless, like I said, you need to make a change. But anyway, I think that's really about it. If you have any questions, you guys can post them on the board or email me. We'll be glad to answer them. But you may want to wait for the other videos to come out. I will be addressing some more in-depth things like how to start tuning for bigger injectors, how to tune for drivability, tuning with data tracing enabled, things like that, and you'll really see that it's not that hard at all. So that's it for now.